It looks like Shedeur Sanders has officially returned to the practice field, coming off what the team labeled an oblique setback. He was sidelined for about a week, but now he's back in action. And while there's no guarantee he'll start or even suit up Saturday, simply seeing him moving again brings a surge of confidence, especially given the storm brewing inside the Cleveland Browns organization. Footage has already surfaced of Sanders at practice, with Kevin Stefanski addressing the media afterward. But here's the question everyone's asking. What if everything we've been told this past week was nothing but smoke and mirrors? What if the injury updates, the quiet sidelines, and the media silence weren't signs of a problem at all, but part of a calculated plan? Because something unusual happened at Browns practice, something that had league insiders and diehard fans echoing the same thought. Why isn't Shedeur Sanders already leading this team? After being shelved with what was called a minor oblique issue, Sanders stepped back on that field and didn't just participate, he flipped the entire practice upside down. Players halted mid-drill just to watch. Coaches froze in place, and all those whispers about him not being ready instantly disintegrated. This wasn't just a workout, this was a statement. Sanders' return didn't merely silence critics, it exposed something deeper, an internal decision keeping the Browns' most dynamic talent in the shadows. Reports flooding out of camp today suggest Sanders left Kevin Stefanski and the Browns speechless after practice. And let's be clear, what happened wasn't normal, it wasn't routine, it wasn't expected. It was lightning in a bottle, once witnessed, impossible to ignore. So the question lingers. Were we being misled from the start? When Cleveland first announced Sanders' oblique injury, nobody flinched. Preseason knocks happened, but as days ticked by with vague updates and no real medical details, suspicions grew. Then suddenly, without warning, Sanders was back, moving as if nothing had ever been wrong, and here's why that matters. True oblique injuries leave scars on performance, restricted mobility, hesitation on throws, diminished torque on deep balls. But none of that showed up. No grimace, no hesitation, just missiles zipping out of his hand like he'd never missed a rep. That's why some now believe this entire injury was nothing but a strategic smokescreen, a way for the Browns to slow play his ascent, ease the pressure, and protect veteran egos. But today's practice proved one undeniable truth. Shedeur isn't playing catch-up. He's been ready all along. And the moment he stepped onto that field, the atmosphere transformed. Not gradually, instantly. Great quarterbacks carry an energy that doesn't appear on stat sheets, but reshapes everything around them. That's exactly what happened. Teammates stopped in their tracks. Coaches forgot to coach. And with every laser beam spiraling out of Sanders' hand, it became obvious this wasn't a rookie shaking off rust. This was a takeover.
The Kansas City Chiefs defense has taken a gut punch that could echo throughout the entire season. Entering 2025, this unit was expected to once again rank among the NFL's most formidable groups, after finishing 4th in scoring defense and 9th in total defense last year. That foundation, however, has been shaken by a devastating setback. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, the Chiefs' 2023 first-round pick and an emerging force along the defensive front, has suffered a torn right hamstring that will sideline him for the entirety of the season. The news broke just before the preseason finale, abruptly ending what many believed would be his breakout campaign. In 2024, Anudike flashed enormous potential, racking up 27 tackles, 14 pressures, 7 hurries, 6 tackles for loss, 4 QB hits, 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and a recovery. Those numbers positioned him as one of Kansas City's most disruptive young defenders, with a trajectory pointing toward a massive leap in 2025. Head coach Andy Reid voiced his disappointment, saying, "He's worked hard. We'll see where it goes. I can't tell you how long it's going to be." At Kansas State, his collegiate resume was filled with double-digit sack totals, relentless pressure, and game-changing edge presence. the very qualities Kansas City envisioned translating at the pro level. Instead, the Chiefs must now reshuffle, signing defensive end Owen Carney to fill the roster spot. Carney, an undrafted free agent who briefly spent time with the Bengals, has yet to play a regular season snap. For now, his role projects as rotational depth, while defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo recalibrates his front. Losing Anudike won't sink Kansas City's defense outright, but it undeniably lowers the ceiling of a group with Super Bowl-level aspirations. And while the defense adapts, the spotlight inevitably swings back to the offense, where whispers of a blockbuster reunion refuse to fade. Ever since Tyreek Hill's departure in 2022, Kansas City has lacked that lethal vertical presence who once terrified defenses and opened the field for Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. The Chiefs dealt Hill to Miami for 5 draft picks, and the Dolphins locked him up on a 4-year $120 million extension. Now, 3 years later, cracks are beginning to show in Hill's relationship with Miami. After a late-season loss, he vented frustrations about the quarterback situation and even requested a trade before walking back his stance. Tensions with the Dolphins staff and Tua Tagovailoa remain uneasy, fueling speculation of a return to Arrowhead. The logic for Kansas City is undeniable. Since Hill's exit, the franchise has cycled through veteran stopgaps and draft gambles in search of a replacement. Rashee Rice flashed potential before his setback, and Kelce remains the anchor. But the receiving core has lacked consistent explosiveness. The shortcomings were glaring in the Super Bowl loss to Philadelphia, where protection issues and the absence of a true deep threat limited Mahomes' arsenal. Should Miami reach a breaking point, the Chiefs could pounce. Structurally, a trade could be crafted to let Miami shoulder much of Hill's salary early in the year, while Kansas City regains a player already fluent in Mahomes' rhythm and Andy Reid's system. For the Chiefs, it wouldn't just be nostalgia. It would be a restoration of the most dangerous weapon in their championship offense, a game-breaking force who stretches defenses to every blade of grass. With Rice's future uncertain and the wide receiver room unsettled, a Hill reunion could prove more practical than sentimental. For a franchise chasing another Lombardi, such a move could alter the entire trajectory of the season. Now, the questions fall to you, Chiefs Kingdom. What do you make of Gardner Minshew's arrival as Patrick Mahomes' backup? Is he a reliable insurance policy or little more than depth with limited upside? And the biggest debate of all, would you welcome Tyreek Hill back to Kansas City, or should the team continue building around its newer pieces instead of revisiting the past? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for daily updates. We'll keep you locked in on everything happening in Kansas City. See you soon. Y'all, it's time for a real talk about what's unfolding in Kansas City. And for fantasy football managers who've been riding the Travis Kelce wave for the past decade, the forecast isn't looking good. Now before you come for me, let me set the record straight. I've got nothing but admiration for what Kelce has accomplished. We're talking about a future Hall of Famer, a generational phenom who's been the gold standard for tight ends in fantasy football since the Obama administration. But the NFL is a young man's arena, and Father Time remains the one opponent no legend can outrun. Let's read the writing on the wall. Last season should have sent shockwaves through the fantasy football world. But somehow, too many are still asleep. Kelce, at 35, wrapped up the season as T5 with 97 receptions, 823 yards, and just 3 touchdowns. Now I get it. Those numbers aren't bad. In fact, for 95% of the league's tight ends, that stat line would be career-defining. But Travis Kelce isn't the 95%. He's the elite of the elite, the benchmark. And when a down year looks like this, it means the decline isn't just coming. It's already here. Here's where things start to unravel. The analytics expose what raw stats try to mask. Kelce's yards per route, run, YPRR, dipped to a concerning 1.67, ranking 21st among tight ends. Let that sink in. This is the same guy who used to be Mahomes's automatic read, the security blanket. For context, he posted a 2.01 YPRR in 2023 and a dominant 2.44 in 2022. This isn't a slow fade. It's a cliff dive. And then there's the tape. I've dissected every snap he's played over the last 3 seasons. The drop-off isn't dramatic. It's subtle. But it's real. That first step explosiveness off the line. It's dulled. The effortless separation he once created. Now it's manufactured. More dependent on schemes and spacing. Even Pro Football Focus handed him a modest 71.7 grade last season. Good for 13th out of 74 tight ends. Respectable? Sure. But for a man who's owned a top 3 spot for nearly a decade, that's a throne beginning to tremble. Now let me be clear. This isn't a eulogy. Kelce can still ball. He's better than most tight ends in the league. But in the cutthroat world of fantasy football, where production, consistency, and upside reign supreme, his trajectory is trending the wrong way. Let's talk volume. The lifeblood of fantasy, tight ends. Even if a player's physical tools are eroding, heavy target share can disguise it. The issue? That monopoly Kelce enjoyed in Kansas City is fading, and it's not his fault. Last season, the Chiefs' receiving core was in shambles. Injuries left Kelce as Mahomes' lone trusted target. In a twisted way, that boosted his fantasy stock. Even during a statistical downturn, he was the emergency valve, the fallback, the dependable presence in a collapsing structure. But when Rashee Rice was healthy and active, we got a sobering preview of what's to come. In the 3 full games Rice played start to finish, Kelce's production crumbled. 8 catches, 69 yards, 0 touchdowns on 12 targets. Yes, it's a small sample. But extrapolate that over 17 games, and you're looking at just 45 catches for 391 yards. Numbers that wouldn't even crack the top 15 tight ends. That's a crisis for fantasy managers banking on vintage Kelce. And here's the real pivot point, the Rashee Rice effect. Initially, the fantasy community clung to hopes that Rice might face a suspension in 2025. A potential saving grace for Kelce's target dominance, but the latest buzz suggests Rice will likely be active from week 1. Siphoning targets Kelce used to feast on. And let's be real, Rice isn't just filler, he's explosive, ascending, and ready to step into the WR1 role. That reality, fundamentally, alters the Chiefs' offensive dynamic. Mahomes is evolving, his arsenal is expanding, and Kelce, for the first time in years, is morphing into a complementary weapon, not the cornerstone. That's the natural arc of aging. Even for icons, the Chiefs have always prided themselves on maximizing space and playmaker potential. But with a healthy Rice, we'll see broader target distribution, more creativity, and fewer plays where Kelce is Mahomes' unquestioned first read. And now, the truth nobody wants to confront: age. Kelce enters the 2025 season at 36 years old, a senior citizen in tight end years. The position demands youth, explosiveness, and endurance, three qualities that inevitably erode with time. Kelce's mind and hands remain elite, but the body is speaking a different language. Let's be real. The tight end position in the NFL demands a rare fusion of size, speed, agility, and elite hands. And the harsh reality is this: every one of those attributes erodes with time. What makes this position especially unforgiving is the constant physical punishment tight ends endure. Linebackers, safeties, and defensive backs collide with them on every level of the field. The fantasy football reality check, let's not sugarcoat it. The tight end pool in fantasy football has long been a barren wasteland. A couple of stars dominate the top tier, followed by a cliff of mediocrity. But in 2025, the gap is even more pronounced. Brock Bowers has exploded onto the scene in Vegas, young, electric, and already the focal point. Trey McBride is a target magnet in Arizona. George Kittle, despite injury concerns, still possesses week-winning upside. And then there's everyone else. And unfortunately, that's where Kelce now resides. He's no longer the surefire, matchup-breaking force that can single-handedly swing fantasy titles. He's drifted into that murky middle tier, where name value exceeds real value. And fantasy GMs are still paying a premium for past glory. The draft trap. Kelce's ADP is a mirage. Right now, Travis Kelce is being drafted as the T5 around pick 67 overall. That's the same territory as TJ Hawkinson, Chris Godwin, and Courtland Sutton. That's valuable draft capital, the kind that wins or loses leagues. Here's the problem. You're buying nostalgia, not future production. At that price point, you could secure a high-upside RB2, a breakout WR candidate, or a dependable flex weapon. Instead, you're gambling on a 36-year-old tight end whose metrics are falling, whose target share is shrinking, and whose red zone role is deteriorating. The opportunity cost is massive. Those mid-rounds are where rosters are fortified, where savvy drafters land the depth that carries them through injuries, bye weeks, and playoff pushes. Spending a sixth rounder on a declining TE isn't just risky, it's a strategic misfire. Smarter strategy. Draft like a pro. So what should smart fantasy managers do? Simple. If you can't land Bowers, McBride, or Kittle, punt the position. Target undervalued options like David Njoku, who's going significantly later, but could match or exceed Kelce's production. Take a shot on Dalton Kincaid, who has the athleticism and opportunity in Buffalo to break out. Here's the kicker. The difference between TE5 and TE14 is often 20 to 30 fantasy points across the entire season. That's less than 2 points per game, easily offset by hitting on a sleeper WR or a flex RB in those same rounds. The Chiefs' evolving offense, a shift in identity. This isn't just about Kelce. This is about how Andy Reid's offense is evolving. He's never been rigid. He adapts to maximize talent. And with a young, explosive weapon like Rashee Rice, ready to shine, expect the playbook to favor more traditional passing routes, emphasizing speed and separation. Kelce won't be phased out, but his role will shift. From featured playmaker to situational safety valve. He'll be valuable on third downs and in the red zone, but he won't command the target share that once made him fantasy gold. Plus, with a retooled offensive line and deeper backfield, expect more balanced play calling, more running, fewer passing attempts, and thus fewer opportunities across the board. Kansas City Chiefs Nation, it's time to strap in. Because your squad is about to receive a monumental boost heading into the 2025 season. The latest announcement has me more fired up than a kid tearing into gifts on Christmas morning. And I guarantee every loyal member of Chiefs Kingdom is feeling that same surge of adrenaline right now. Rashee Rice is back, and he's not just back, he's coming with a vengeance. Coach Andy Reid took to the podium Thursday and delivered the update every Chiefs fan has been anxiously praying for since that brutal knee injury sidelined Rice last October. After undergoing surgery for a torn LCL, the young wideout has been grinding relentlessly. And let me tell you, his work ethic is on another level. Coach Reid confirmed Rice has been a full participant in both voluntary OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Proof of his grit, focus, and relentless drive to return stronger than ever. Let me break down exactly why this should have Chiefs fans doing cartwheels in their living rooms. Before that injury struck him down like a thunderbolt, Rice was absolutely scorching opposing defenses. In just 4 games, yes, only 4, he tallied 24 receptions, 288 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's not just good. That's elite game-breaking production that had defensive coordinators across the league staying up at night trying to scheme against him. And now, he's coming back at the perfect time. Kansas City's receiving unit has undergone a major transformation. DeAndre Hopkins, who brought veteran poise and reliable hands, has left for Baltimore, opening the door wide for Rice to ascend into the WR1 role. Everyone knows he's got the chops to own it. And let's not ignore the elephant in the room, Travis Kelce, a future Hall of Famer and the heart of this offense, is turning 36 in October. While he's still playing at an elite level, the Chiefs must begin redistributing offensive responsibilities, and Rashee Rice is primed to shoulder that load. Rice's rookie campaign in 2023 wasn't just solid. It was spectacular. The second-round pick burst onto the scene and immediately rewrote the record books. 7 receiving touchdowns and 79 receptions as a rookie. That's not padding stats in garbage time. Those are clutch, momentum-shifting plays in high stakes moments. What makes Rice such a threat isn't just his glue-like hands. It's his football intelligence, surgical route running, and uncanny ability to exploit soft spots in coverage. He makes elite defenders look ordinary. And Mahomes thrives when he has trustworthy weapons. And Rice is exactly that. He creates separation, wins contested battles, and turns routine catches into explosive gains. And he's surrounded by a receiving corps that's quietly becoming one of the most lethal in the NFL. Marquise Hollywood Brown brings blazing speed and veteran savvy. Juju Smith-Schuster offers grit, clutch instincts, and championship pedigree. Xavier Worthy is already flashing brilliance as a rookie, and Jalen Royals, the fourth-round gem, adds dynamic depth and untapped potential. But Rice is the crown jewel, the potential WR1 who can be the engine of this offense. He's not just talking big, he's exuding belief. He's been vocal about how this group is going to be explosive and light up the scoreboard. And you can feel it. It's not just swagger, it's certainty backed by talent. When you combine Rice's deep threat ability, Worthy's speed, Brown's experience, and Juju's consistency, you're looking at a nightmare matchup for defensive coordinators, week after week. Let's not forget, the Chiefs were this close to making NFL history last year, falling just short of a three-peat after a tough loss to Philadelphia. That stung bad. The Eagles exposed a few cracks, the lack of consistent big plays and some heartbreaking drops in critical moments. But now, with Rice back, rejuvenated and ready to dominate, the Chiefs are reloading for another title run. But as last season showed us, even elite dynasties must adapt or fall behind. The issues that plagued Kansas City's offense weren't flukes or bad luck. They were glaring, data-backed weaknesses that simply couldn't be ignored. The Chiefs, ranked 27th in the league in explosive plays per dropback, managing to gain more than 15 yards only 6.2% of the time. That's not championship caliber production, especially for a team with Patrick Mahomes at the helm. The only teams worse in that category? The Browns, Giants, Patriots, Dolphins, and Bears, all of whom were watching the playoffs from their couches. The numbers get more alarming. Just 6.7 yards per attempt, firmly in the league's lower tier. Only 42 passing plays of 20-plus yards, 6th worst in the NFL. And only 4 passing plays of 40-plus yards, tied for second worst in the entire league. Their longest pass of the season? A modest 54 yards, third worst league-wide. Stats like that don't win rings. They get coordinators fired and postseason dreams shattered. But here's why Rashee Rice changes the equation entirely. This young phenom has a rare blend of explosiveness, precision, and football IQ. He can turn a 5-yard slant into a 50-yard sprint. He separates deep downfield. He improvises when plays break down. And that is exactly the kind of player Kansas City was sorely missing last season. The chemistry he shares with Mahomes? It was already forming in those first 4 games before the injury. Timing, trust, rhythm, all showing flashes of something truly special. Thank you guys, see you next video.